Trump supporters challenge recounts in Michigan, Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. Efforts by President-elect Donald Trump's campaign and his supporters have attempted to halt presidential election recounts in Michigan, Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. Trump-affiliated attorneys have lodged bids in Michigan and Pennsylvania to block recounts there requested by Green Party nominee Jill Stein. Stein received around 1% of the vote in each of the 3 states where she has sought recounts. Trump's lawyers made their case before the Michigan Board of State Canvassers on Friday, 2 days after Stein filed a petition for a recount in the Great Lakes state. Out of roughly 4.8 million ballots cast, Trump won the state, which carries 16 Electoral College votes, by about 10,700 votes over Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton. Green Party presidential candidate Drive. Jill Stein received barely 1% of the vote in the 2016 Michigan presidential election, finishing over 2.2 million votes behind the winner, attorneys for Trump wrote in a complaint filed with the board Thursday. Despite being just a blip on the electoral radar, Stein has now commandeered Michigan's electoral process. Simply put, Michigan should not grant this lawless, insulting request, and its voters should not risk having the Electoral College door knocked off its hinges, all because a 1% candidate is dissatisfied with the election's outcome. The board, made up of 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans, voted 2-2 on Trump's objection, meaning the Michigan recount could go forward barring a court order. However, the Republican Attorney General of Michigan, Bill Schwett, filed a lawsuit on Friday on behalf of the state in the Michigan Court of Appeals, also seeking a rejection of Stein's recount request. Michigan voters rejected Stein's candidacy by massive margins, but her refusal to accept that state-verified result poses an expensive and risky threat to hard-working taxpayers and abuses the intent of Michigan law, Schwett said in a statement. We have asked the court to end the recount which Stein is pursuing in violation of Michigan laws that protect the integrity of our elections. It is inexcusable for Stein to put Michigan voters at risk of paying millions and potentially losing their voice in the Electoral College in the process. Schwett's lawsuit calls Stein's petition a dilatory and frivolous request by an unaggrieved party, and says Stein has zero chance of winning Michigan's electoral votes. Schwett also filed an emergency motion asking the state Supreme Court to block the recount. At the canvassing board hearing Friday, Mark Brewer, an attorney for Stein, called the effort by Trump and his team to avoid a recount a desperate attempt. I would remind everybody that the original source of the allegation that this election was rigged was Mr. Trump, Brewer told the board. In Wisconsin, where Trump beat Clinton by 22,000 votes out of nearly 3 million and a recount is already underway, a lawsuit and restraining order request were filed in federal court on Thursday in Madison by 2 Trump-supporting political committees, the Great America PAC and the Stop Hillary PAC, and a Wisconsin voter. Gov. Scott Walker, a Trump supporter, also said he would consider limiting who in the future could petition for a recount in the state, which carries 10 electoral votes. Current law says anyone may request a recount, but must pay for the effort if their loss is by a margin greater than 0.25% of the vote. I think a lot of people, no matter where they sit on the political spectrum, kind of scratch their head on why someone would ask for a recount when they came in fourth, Walker said of Stein. I think we should call it for what it is, and really it's just a fundraising scheme for the Green Party, Walker told reporters. It's perfectly legal. It's their right to do that. They're paying for it. The taxpayer is not paying for it. The only real concern I have is that for a lot of these clerks, local clerks, they're already busy. And in Pennsylvania, lawyers tied to Trump, including his newly named White House counsel, Donald McGahn, filed a complaint in state court Thursday accusing Stein of having commandeered Pennsylvania's electoral process with an eye toward doing the same to the Electoral College. there is no evidence, or even an allegation, that any tampering with Pennsylvania's voting systems actually occurred, they wrote. Trump's lead in Pennsylvania, nearly 70,000 after election night, reportedly has shrunk to less than 50,000. The state carries 20 Electoral College votes. None of the campaigns say they expect the recounts to change the results in the three states, let alone the election. But Stein, whose efforts raised nearly $7 million in a matter of days to fund the recounts, says the enthusiasm about her bids demonstrates the frustration with an election system that relies on outdated equipment and is at risk of being hacked. But as the overwhelming grassroots demand shows, close to $7 million raised by nearly 150,000 people, Americans are hungry for a voting system they can trust. And they won't let these obstacles get in their way, Stein said.